Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Bad Lit Friends, the writing podcast that still barely knows what it's doing. I'm Meagan Thompson-Mann, and this is my co-host.
Hi, I'm Kirk Rafferty.
And today we have with us Isaac Grijalva, whose
There you go.
debut, 6.5 Days in the City, was released just this past month,
Yeah.
on March 1st, and it's now available on Amazon and his own shop and all sorts of places. And we are here today to talk to him about his book, about his writing journey, and what it's like to be in this crazy world. So thank you so much for joining us today, Isaac.
Of course.
Thank you, Isaac.
Thank you for having me.
So let's talk a little bit about your book. And I'm going to say, tell us a little bit about yourself. You have a lot going on. You've got work, you are in school, you are writing, you are publishing. Tell us what you're doing and how you manage to balance it all.
Yeah. So first and foremost, I do work as an EMT by day here in Merced County. I work for an IFT company, so I'm not super busy. We don't get dispatched to emergency scenes, which is helpful when it comes to school because they don't care about your schedule. If you're working for a 911 company, they need you when they need you. They're not flexible in the slightest. So working there is actually a lot better than if I worked for the 911 company in the county. I'm also my parents' caretaker, so I also have those responsibilities of like getting meds and like taking them to their appointments and making sure they're taking their meds. Trying not to have them drive each other crazy. I also have I'm a student. I went to UC Merced, graduated almost 5 years ago now, and I got my bachelor's in biology and psychology. I've worked as a mentor, tutor, course reader, and an EMT for the last 3 years. So yeah, I've been writing since I was like 10, probably earlier than that. But as much as I can remember actually like it being like story based, I was like 10 years old. My grandma used to read my little stories. I think I put that in the acknowledgments on the book. But yeah, so I do all that stuff and it sounds like a lot, but honestly, it works. It works somehow.
So, and what are you studying right now?
Now I'm taking courses again, just as a kind of similar to what Cameron is doing, taking courses to improve my GPA so that I'm competitive for medical school.
And
Yeah.
the end goal is being a medical doctor.
The end is goal is being a doctor, correct?
Awesome. Very cool. So
Yeah.
hats off to you.
Thank you.
That is really, really difficult. So you said that you started writing kind of stories around 10. What were the books that made you want to write?
I'm not really sure I can pinpoint it to like the books that made me want to write. I've always just had a really like colorful imagination and like to tell stories, and I would always watch like drama television growing up, and I was kind of just intrigued by that. When
Mhm.
I did start reading, I read like 39 Clues. I picked up Percy Jackson, but then I didn't finish it. And then kind of stopped reading altogether because I was just wanting to do writing. And that was kind of just a way to me like cope because my childhood was like really tumultuous and my parents, like we've been through a lot. And so it was kind of just a way to like escape. It was kind of like an escape art to write and to just put myself into something that was healthy and not have to deal with everything that's going around.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it sounds like you wrote a lot of yourself into your book. Look, I did it too. So, but so tell us about 6.5 days in the city. Do you have an elevator pitch or like a you know?
I would say it's a travel fiction book, following the vacation of a burned out medic who's trying to escape all the chaos that's going on, just to realize that he has not really dealt with the unresolved trauma in his life, and it kind of just starts to show and peek through as he's here in New York and trying to be there for people who are like his best friends, and then as they're trying to be there for him too, realizing that like there's been something in the way of him not getting the emotional connection that he's always craved from a young age. So a lot of Cameron's like professional and just like a little bit of the home stuff. I have a much better relationship with my parents than Cameron does.
Good. I read the book.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm glad to hear it. So,
Yeah. Um but the relationship that he has with his brother, that's very real. Especially as we become adults and we've gone into our own people, kind of just watching my brother become, who he is, and Cameron has his own reflections on that.
Mhm.
and the memories that he has with his brother. The New Mexico trip, for example, like that was very personal and very real for me, and that was something that I obviously wanted to include, just because it's like kind of like a nod to the love that I have for my own brother.
It was just, did you have an elevator pitch? But also this is good because I also
Yeah,
wanted to talk about,
yeah, this is
kind of
great. I feel like the best books are the ones where the author, doesn't necessarily, make the main character themselves, but kinda dips into their own life, right? You dip in, you
Yeah,
dip out, you dip in, you dip out, you kinda
exactly.
pull in some things, and so it sounds like that's what you did.
yeah.
That's exactly what I did. So, like, as the story goes, like, obviously, like, very whatever is very, like, catered to a story and to, like, um, really push the narrative forward and to advance the plot, that's obviously, like, fabricated and not real. But, like, all the places that Cameron goes with Red in Asia, like, we actually go to those places, and obviously how things turn out and, like, all the things that, like, go on through his head are not actually real, it's there for the story. So, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, sometimes it's better that fiction stay fiction, right? So,
Exactly.
it was when I was coming to reading your book, I didn't have any expectations. I had the blurb, and it is not a romance. It is not a rom-com. It is absolutely it's a journey of self-discovery for Cam, and it is over the course of, as it says, 6.5 days in the city, him starting to crack the shell on himself and kind of stand some of the more difficult aspects of himself, the things that are holding him back.
Yeah.
Um, what what drew you to wanting to write it this way as opposed to kind of like, "Oh, here's all these quirky little things that happened in the city,
Yeah.
little adventure?"
Yeah, I don't know. I've always loved books that are very, like, digging deep into somebody's, like, psyche, kind of watching somebody's journey from kind of like, everything's okay and everything's fine, but then it's like, "Oh, actually, no, no, it's not." And then kind of going to, like, maybe trying to ignore it or maybe trying to address it, but then really having something that, like, pushes them into, like, "This has to be addressed," stuff like that. And I originally wasn't gonna make it so heavy, especially towards the end, but I felt like with the way that it was going, it kind of the story almost demanded a more heavy a more heavy end, but
Mhm.
even though it is heavy, like, it's still very hopeful, and it's still very, like, addresses the generational essential curse that he feels plagued his family, that they're trying to make strives to, like, heal from.
What I found interesting, and this is not giving any spoilers away at all. It felt like the ending for me was like putting a key into a lock and turning it, and then,
Yeah,
like, the spring popped and I could see inside, and it explained so much of Cam's thought process. We're very close to Cam throughout this entire book, and understanding a lot of his choices that to me, I was like, "Well, I can see kind of why he's doing this. I understand, and I understand how it's bringing the narrative forward." But once I understood that, once the key fit in the lock, I really understood why he was doing what he was
yeah.
doing, and I think you handled that quite well. So,
Thank you. Yeah.
yeah, it explained a lot, and I was like, "Oh, boy." So, yes, a heavy ending was appropriate here. So,
Yeah.
just my opinion. But, we were talking you mentioned Asia and Red earlier. They are
Yes.
Cam's friends in New York, and do you wanna talk a little bit about this concept of them as his found family and the connections that he has with them? For me, this friendship felt super lived in. This felt
Yeah.
very natural, like, these are people who are so comfortable with each other, and it felt very real to me. Talk to us a little bit about how friendship operates in this book.
Yeah. It definitely drives the narrative through. I think Cameron has a hard time understanding the influence that he has on people's lives, especially those that he's very close to. Not just in proximity like his family, but like to those that he really cares about and to those who really care for him. In a way, he's kind of blind to it only because he's never really like he's very good at like the superficial and like, oh like of course we're friends, like of course we're family, like of course I love him, etc. But it's never like deeper and he doesn't understand like what that essentially means or how that has affected the relationships that he builds. And then it's really like the first time that he really understands like the impact or like how other people see him is when they're standing on the vessel and she tells him like he compliments her and then she says like I wish I were as good at that or I wish I were like you
Mhm.
more. and it's sort of like an eye-opening moment. He's like, "Oh, shit," like, and there's been so much that he just hasn't been able to deal with because he's just drowned himself in work and school and, being the older brother and taking care of the family and doing this and doing that. So for him to have emotional connection and comfort with people that he didn't realize were also his family, even though they're not related, he was like, shit, like I can actually do this. I can actually form the bonds that I have with my friends, with my family, like I've always wanted to, even though like it's been in front of me the whole time. You know, it is possible.
And I felt for him a lot. It is like I felt that he didn't kind of quite get what a special person he really is, and the people outside of him can see that very easily. Even in the without giving too much away, the sort of fleeting encounters that he has with people, that
Yeah.
these people can see that in him,
Yeah.
and that he even when he can't see it himself. And it's so much of that now that I've come to the end of it and also talking to you is so much informed by the trauma that he's lived through in his life. And trauma is something that I write about as well, and how trauma from long ago can continue to have echoes and repercussions in your life, even in places
Yes.
where you don't expect it to pop up.
Right.
And it is even when we convinced ourselves that we've moved on from it and that everything's cool and we're all healed, these things have a way of kind of bubbling up.
Yeah.
So, without giving too much away, how would you say that trauma informed Cam's choices in this book?
I think the biggest thing of all was always the search for emotional connection that he felt that he didn't have, or that
Mhm.
he felt was too much of a heavy thing for him to deal with. And so, not that it was his fault in any way, but in that it had consequences that were never really even considered. And so as he's getting older, he's still kind of searching for that closeness, for that intimacy that he lacked, only to realize that like it's there. He has it. It's never something that he's had his eyes open to. And it's of course because there's so much going on and there's so much else that he needs to worry about. The vacation was kind of just like the perfect opportunity for him to for it at the for him to slow down, but at the same time for everything to just come back up and to
Mhm.
increase in intensity. And so that's essentially where he finds himself, I think, at this point of his
Yeah.
life.
I got the real
Yeah.
impression that he was using, like, work and school to kind of numb himself. Well, and also what I'm about wanna talk about right now, which is hookup culture.
Yeah.
And how all of this he uses to kind of numb himself from dealing with the actual, like, pointy end of what's really at the heart of everything. I have some questions that I'm gonna get to later on about writing spice because
Yeah.
I've been trying to do it. Kirk and I have been we've been talking about this, about how my attempts to write, spicy stuff, it's like, okay, there's salsa, and then there's Meagan's spice writing, which is basically marinara sauce.
Yeah, yeah, and
Yeah,
there's Kirk, it's just ketchup.
it's
Yeah.
ketchup,
Yeah.
yeah, so but well, I'll get to that in a moment, but, he's used there's a lot of sex in this, which it is. I thought you did a really good job with it,
Thank you.
but he uses it, both for distraction, but also he does it for fun. So, how did you approach writing about hookup culture, and, like, what did you wanna say about hookup culture in this book?
Yeah.
Because because even though it was hot, it was also uncomfortable too.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
And
yeah.
it was supposed to be. It was very uncomfortable to write, actually. I don't normally write, like, stuff like this, and I was actually going to leave it out. I was talking to
Thank
my
you
because
for
I had
not
3
leaving it out.
I had 3 beta readers, and I was like, "I feel like I should take this out, like, I don't know that this is good." And they were like, "It's not great, but it has its place, and, like, it functions, like, for the plot." They're like, "You just have to, like, fix it up a bit, and then it'll be fine." And I was like, "Oh, okay." I was like, I don't know, I should take it all together." They're like, "No, don't." They're like, "Don't do that." And so it's kind of just accessible, and it's kind of a good I don't know, a good way to distract if you need a distraction. However, like, I wanted it to be to the point where it's like, "Damn, again?" And so that's really, like, the part of it's like, at this point, it's almost pathological.
Yeah, I got that. I got that 100%. It felt
Yeah.
compulsive.
Yeah, and especially when it takes away from the needs of, not even just, like, social connection, but, like, actual, like, hunger. I think there's a scene where he's like, "Fuck, I'm so hungry and I'm so tired," but, like, all he can think about is his next suck up. And so, it can be fun and it can be, freeing and all that, and that's essentially what it's supposed to feel like, but then there's also, like, the other side of that when it's, "Hey, we're actually neglecting ourselves because there's things that we have not dealt with yet, never
Yeah.
actually addressed." Cameron's also just very vain, so he likes the attention.
He's a little self-effacing, and he's a little, kind of humble about some things. I could
Yeah.
tell that he thought he was very attractive. So it
He
was
he very much thinks so, and he likes being told that he's attractive as well.
yes, yes, I got that. Yes, yes. And before we started recording, I told you I really want to talk about panic attack and panic
Yes,
disorder representation. I've talked about it a few times on the podcast before. I have a severe anxiety disorder, and one part of that is that I have panic disorder, and it was really, really interesting for me to see panic attacks written about in a way that even though it isn't my exact experience, because all panic attacks are different for
right, they're very
everybody,
different.
very, very different, to see it on a page and the kind of depersonalization and dissociation that can happen as a result of it, it was something I haven't read before. And what made you wanna bring this into the book, which, by the way, thank you for having that there, but
Yeah, of
also, like,
course.
why did you wanna make it part of Cam's story?
Yeah, I mean, I've struggled myself with anxiety and depression. It never really got to that point, thankfully. Because I sought help after I was like, "Oh, no, like, this is bad." And I think to that extension, like, I've always enjoyed books where I kinda just see it and I'm like, "Damn, like, this person's really going through it," and I'm like to the point where I'm like, "Fucking get help already." Because at that point, it's Cameron's kind of really deep in it, and I
Yeah.
wanted to kinda just show too, I think sometimes we kind of see, like, "Oh, they're going through all this, and, like, their life is a mess," right? But Cameron's life really isn't that much of a mess. He has a lot of things going for him, and he even says it himself, like, "Things are going right, but I don't feel like I deserve any of this, and don't think I'm good enough." And so I kind of wanted to showcase that because I myself have been there where it's like, "Oh, yeah, like, I have so much going for me, and I have all this, and I have all this good all these good things." But, like, either I'm not good enough or, like, I'm so scared that, like, at the snap of a finger, it's just gonna be all gone. You know what I mean? And it's so irrational because it's like I don't even there's no reason for me to feel that way, for that to even be, like, in the realm of a possibility, but it's there. And I know that can be so isolating of a feeling to have,
Mhm.
and so I wanted to essentially just show people, like, it's more common than we think and that it
Yeah.
gets let on. We have really good ways of hiding it for a long time until
Yeah.
finally we can't do it anymore.
You did a great job with it, and it was
Thank
really
you.
great to see on the page. It's something I have thought about myself occasionally about trying to figure out how I could work it in at some point because it is something that is rarely, in my experience, rarely seen or rarely depicted in a realistic way. I also wanted to talk about, New York City. It's a
Yeah,
character unto itself in this book. You did a great job. Why
thank
did you
you.
choose New York as a setting?
New York City is one of my favorite places in the world. I remember I was 19 years old when I went for the first time, and it felt so surreal because I'd wanted to go since I was like 10 or 11 years old. And it really felt like I was dreaming for like the first 2 to 3 days. Like I could not believe that it was real. And I've always I've always gotten inspiration for writing and for other things when I go out to on vacation. And so for I picked it mainly not just because it was actually where I was on my vacation throughout the same timeline, but because it's the first place that I was really like on my own and just kind of discovering a city and everything that it has to offer and like all the excitement, but also like all the noise that can be helpful and like distracting, but then it can also like again bring out like it can also be like overstimulating and can make you like anxious and
Mhm.
it can really just flip on itself. And it's very tumultuous and I love New York City myself, but like all my friends who are like really like can get overstimulated easily and stuff like that, they hate it. They're like, I'd rather not go to New York City and if I'm gonna be in New York City, like keep me out of Times Square, like take me somewhere like on the outskirts or something.
It's
Stuff like
funny
that.
because I grew up in Connecticut. I've been going to New York since I was a baby. I don't I'm a person who gets overstimulated in Costco, but
Okay.
but when I'm in New York, I'm fine because it's so normal to me that I'm like, "Yeah, whatever." But it was interesting to see it through somebody else's eyes, like somebody
Yeah.
who is not unfamiliar with the place, but somebody for whom it's still a destination as opposed to, "It's just this place I go to."
Yeah.
So I think you really brought out the flavor of it, and I think you got it. So, and the
Mhm.
differences in the neighborhoods,
Yeah.
I got that, like, and also, like, schlepping from one neighborhood to another, and also, like, for people in California, it can be really weird, like, this concept, like, I can walk to another neighborhood.
Yeah.
Which I forget, even though I grew up someplace where you could totally do that. It reminded me, like, yeah, you could just go walk for 20 blocks, 40 blocks, and yeah, it's
Yeah.
cool.
Totally different part of the borough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you talked in some of the information I had from you, you talked about drawing inspiration from Perks of Being a Wallflower. And Emily Henry. Yeah, I also love Emily Henry. And so how did those books influence you as a writer and in this book in particular?
So, Perks of Being a Wallflower was actually a really big inspiration for me, not to start writing because I'd already been writing, but to write in a different way and to be more personal and to be more like it's what like really made me more wanting to write about like human connection and just kind of like how we operate as units. The trio in Perks of Being a Wallflower influenced the trio in this book. The closeness that they have and how quickly that they bonded. I wish I could have shown like how they met, but I think I did an okay job with the history of it, of what they have. With Emily Henry's books, it's very obviously it's kind of it's a vacation book, so it is influenced by the kind of things that are in people who meet on vacation. But Happy Place, I think, was the one that really kind of solidified
Yeah.
the found family thing for me. Because when I read that, I was like, well, like I have this with people like who influenced the book for 6.5 days in the city, and New York City also operates just like as like kind of like their anchor because
Mhm.
even though they're from a totally like they're all from the opposite side of the country, they have this like really nice place that they can be themselves around and they don't really have to worry about like, oh, my parents this or my family that or like, here's this place in our hometown where we might be traumatized or like we might like, have not so great memories or we have really good ones, but also we have everything over here as well without so much weight to it. And so I think that was kind of my biggest takeaway from those. Just kind of like somewhere to have like anchoring and like also things not going great at home. Asia and Red have their own little almost like freak, not I don't want to say freak, but like a very troubling experience with instability, I would say. There's like a factor of instability there. And they have obviously they're grieving with, their loved ones that have been gone for a while, but it still feels fresh and new. And so that's kind of like them trying to be there for one another and still kind of hold it together in a way.
Um, you're so New York is a huge character, but the Central Valley also plays a role.
Yeah.
Hugely underrepresented in modern fiction. I mean, we got lots of
Yeah.
stuff from like the 30s about about yeah, about the Central Valley. Really interesting to see it portrayed in a modern book. It is, how did your own experiences of being in the Central Valley kind of inform this?
Yeah. Hated it at first. Obviously, being from a super big city, being from San Jose, and then just
Mm.
coming here, I was like, "Oh, there's like this sucks." But it's kind of I've kind of like come into my own here, and I think Cameron's story is very similar. Came into his own there, and kind of like established his career and his like, education there, and like the kind of like solidified his like glue to what he is for his family here in the Central Valley. And it's different because in places like San Jose, San Francisco, New York City, he can be more himself and express himself more freely. Whereas, like in the
Mhm.
Central Valley, things have to be a little more closed door, especially with its profession of where it's like mostly dudes, and they're talking about their wives and doing all this stuff, like being almost inappropriate.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of like well, I can't really express like half of what that stuff because like I don't want to be judged or I don't want to have like people down my shoulder or something like that. And that's something that I've kind of had to navigate as well as being a bisexual person who works in EMS, where it's a little more like very like I don't want to say macho, but like it's very Like the men are very masculine men, and so it's interesting to navigate, I would say. And so that's kind of part of what Cameron has to deal with as well. But on vacation and out of here, like it's totally a different story.
It's interesting, I think, for people who come from cities or sort of cosmopolitan areas that we kind of think of these, m middle America places, like even the Central Valley qualifies as that, as being exotic to us when people from those places think that the places that we're from are exotic and weird, and we're
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
"No, you're the ones who are strange." Like,
Yeah,
we're gonna look at you at like zoo creatures just like you look at us. Like, our
yeah.
experiences are very different, and but he is, unlike you, like, very much a creature of
Mhm.
this world, and that came through. I think this is very much him. I have to say it was cool to read about Central Valley, someplace that I drive through, and I'm just like,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's what it
yeah,
is for
it's
most
like
people. This is some place you drive through. It's a
you
midpoint.
drive through,
Yeah,
you roll down the windows and like, "Wow, it smells like cows." And then you put the windows back up, you're like, "Wow, it still smells like cows inside." Like, apologize to any listeners from the Central Valley.
of course.
It's a lovely place. It does occasionally smell like cows, objectively. But so what are you reading right now? What's in your TBR pile?
I actually just finished reading a book by another indie author. Her name's Michelle Elise. It's a book called A Little Bit of Blue. It's very reminiscent of books like Perks of Being a Wallflower and Catcher in the Rye, so I was very drawn towards that. It's about this kid who used to be a bully, who's like best friends now with the kid that he used to bully. Brother ran away years ago unexpectedly, and then like his mother takes his college savings and like spends it, and he's like weeks from graduation, yeah. And so it's kind of like the story of it's kind of like family reconciliation, second chances, um, stuff like that. It's actually really good. I finished it. I started it Wednesday at noon, and I was done last night at like 9 p.m.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I was like really into this book. I have on my TBR. I'm in the middle of reading A Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily
Mhm.
Henry. I'm
Mhm.
in the middle of reading a couple of others too. But I usually just have whatever is more convenient, whatever I can like carry with me. Because I also have a YouTube channel where, like, I read for that. So that
Wow.
book that we're reading yeah, that book that we're reading is, Vampire Academy, the last book, Last Sacrifice. Mm, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of it.
I have heard
Um,
of it, yeah.
I've heard of Vampire Academy, but I haven't read any of
yeah,
it.
yeah, it's pretty good. It's like vampires with, like, earth magic, like, kinda like Avatar meets, like, Vampire Slayer.
Oh, cool.
It's
Yeah.
kinda yeah, it's pretty cool.
You had me at vampires.
There you go. Yeah, I'm usually into, like, action adventure, stuff like that. Dystopian was really big when I was growing up, like Hunger Games, stuff like that. Like, Hunger Games is, like, all-time favorite. I love those books. I've read the series probably 7 times now.
Wow.
Um, yeah, the original trilogy, and then I read the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, I think 3 times, and Sunrise on the Reaping twice. Yeah, so I have all that good stuff, and I was really into, like, Percy Jackson and Harry Potter,
Mhm.
um, stuff like that.
So, this is a very proudly queer book,
Yeah.
about a bi Latino man, and as somebody who shares some of his identity, do you wanna talk a little bit about representation and the importance of
Yeah.
representation, um, in this book?
Yeah, so I've always loved having queer characters in my stories. Obviously, when I was younger, I didn't think about it that much, but I think the first time I ever was like, this character is going to be bisexual, I was like 15, 14 years old. And actually, that was supposed to be a trilogy, and I wrote the first 2 books, and the third one I just have not gotten to. But if there ever is like a series that's like really taken seriously, I think it'll be that one. Like, probably gonna have to be self-published, but I don't know when I'm gonna get to that. And so that representation kind of I had that character be bisexual before I had even come out of the closet, so it was kind of like an Easter egg almost, like waiting to be. I think like for trans people, it's called like an egg moment, where it's like someone like you kind of like you get like gender envy or like oh you're jealous of like a woman and you're like a cis man, but then you're like oh, maybe I am trans, you know. So something like that, they call that, like, an egg moment. That was kind of mine. And then just I never really saw that. I don't think I ever read a book with, like, openly bisexual man until until, like, 2 years ago, and it was by a bisexual Latino author himself, and I was like, "That's really fucking cool." Like, 'cause if I had had that at a young age, like, I would've been probably would've been a little bit easier to come out of the closet. Obviously, my family's been super supportive, thank God.
Good.
But still coming
That's
out is
awesome.
still, like, scary. Even when you have, like, the most supportive environment and people have told you, like, before you're even, like, thinking about coming out, they're like, "Oh, like, we don't care, like, we love you, whatever." And it's like, "Why are you telling me this?" Because it's like they're trying to get you to come out. But yeah. That was kind of my case. My parents were always like, "Oh, like, no matter what, like, we love you, et cetera," and I'm like, "Leave me alone, what do you mean?" And my grandmother too, like, she'd ask, like, "Oh, like, any boyfriend or girlfriend?" I was like, "Why are you" I was like, "What are you doing?" But yeah, it's definitely something that they all saw before I did, which is really sweet, but it was still kind of just, like, nerve-wracking because there was a family member or 2 who kinda just made things more difficult than they needed to be, most notably my grandparents on the other side. My grandmother that I was talking about who asked me was my mom's mom, the one who I used to write stories for, but then my dad's mom and my dad's dad were and today still they still make, like, little off comments, and I'm like, "Whatever." But growing up, it was definitely, like, an influence where I was just like, I don't know that I actually could express myself in that way, and then I just stopped caring.
Good.
So,
Yeah.
I know that representation is really important because I think being able to see it and having the vocab for that is really, really impactful, and it makes you feel like you actually have a place in society as a
Yeah.
whole, and it's nice to know that people aren't alone in what they're going through, and that's why I have, like, the marginalized characters and the aspects of, like, mental health awareness and stuff like that because it's like, there are people out there who are like you, I promise. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, what do you think that readers who do see themselves in Cam and his story, like, take away from your from the book?
I hope that they realize that if they find themselves in that, like, position, that they're more loved than they realize, and that they have a greater impact on those around them than they think. I know oftentimes we get in our head and we're like, "Oh, I don't mean that much," or like, in the very beginning, Cameron's kind of, like, spiraling when his boss asks him, like, "Is everything going okay?" And he's like, "I think my friends fucking hate me," essentially, and that's, like, really real for a lot of people who have, like, anxiety and stuff like that, and so
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
we
that
are
felt
more
very real.
liked than we are more liked than we assume. It's easy to get into our heads, and it's not a fun place to be.
That's a great takeaway.
So, I'd like to talk a little bit about your writing process and, like, how you approach
Yeah.
craft. So, tell us a little bit about writing for you. Like, what does it look like? What's your routine?
So it usually just starts with, like, some random spark of inspiration. Like, I'll get, like, the climax, and then I'm like, "Oh, I have to write about this," or, like, I'll get maybe, like, a little bit of the beginning, like, what is that called? Like, it's not the resolution.
The
It's
inciting
like
Beginning? The
incident?
inciting incident?
the inciting incident, there you go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's the one. I'll get some of that, and I'm like, "Oh, this could be interesting." For me personally, I was hoping that I would get something out of this vacation, and I was hoping that I would, because I was in the middle of writing a 3-part mini love series inspired by Taylor Swift songs, and
Nice.
and so I had finished the first 2 parts, and I was in the middle of the 3rd part, and I was like, "Oh my god, like, I have to," especially with Emily Henry coming out with Great Big Beautiful Life and that being based off of Last Great American Dynasty. I was like, "I have to finish this now, like, what do you mean?" And so I was kind of going through that, and I was like, "Hopefully, like, I'll come out of this, like, ready to write, part 3." Because my first vacation in April, that's what I also hoped. But then I was like, "I just need a break," because I had just dropped out of paramedic school. I was like, "I need a break. I need to not, like, worry myself with so much, like, I just need to relax." And then coming into this vacation, I was like, "You know what? I have to step it up a little bit. I have to do something with writing." And so usually on vacation, I have been known to be a little bit promiscuous, and one of my friends said as I was leaving, like, "Don't be too much of a whore," someone like what he s what the friend says to Cameron, like, that actually happened. Like, my friend was like, "You gotta keep it in your pants this time," and actually bet me money, and I got my money. I got my $50. I was a good boy this time around. And so when she said that, I was like, "Oh, this is hilarious." Like, if somebody wrote a book like that, like, I would be sold. And then I was like, "I can do that." Like, I can actually do that. And so
I have so many moments when I'm like, "I want this book," and then I realize I've gotta be the person who's gotta write that, I guess.
exactly.
So, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and so I was like, "Well, it can be a little more than that," and so I was like, "I have to build a little more and give it a actual, like, what am I leaving on vacation for and all that," and so as I'm kind of, like, on vacation, when I'm kind of on the more quiet parts, because 'cause I'm not just being a dick and, like, leaving my friends to the dust. On the quieter parts where, like, we're on the subway or, like, on the bus, I'm kinda trying to see, like, what I can bring and what I can embellish through this, to this novel. But before, my planning really wasn't that. I would say this probably the one that I really had to like, how can I push this and how can I make something out of it? How could I take what's there and just make something entirely different? Because before I was just like, I would just start writing and I would just see where it goes. And so that worked for the trilogy that I was writing as a teenager. And that worked for the mini love story series. But I always kind of got stuck. So maybe it didn't work as well as I thought, but it worked for the most part and it worked for the majority of it. And so finally, when I was writing this and then I came to the decision like I'm actually going to publish this, that was when I was like, yeah, I've gotta really dig deep and make this something that like people want to read, you know? And so I kind of had to think a little bit more about the character arcs and like, am I actually tying things up well or like am I just leaving these big, like, overarching questions left unanswered, or am I, like, are there plot holes? I don't know if that can really be a plot hole in a vacation book, I don't know. Stuff like that, that I had to, like, start to consider once I'm like, "Okay, now it's time to, like, actually polish this." So, yeah. It's very, like almost like I didn't know if I could do it, but then I was like, "Yeah, I can." Like, and I did it. Yeah.
And you did do it, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you, do you have, like, very specific times of day when you write? Like, do you get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and write for an hour, or do you kinda do catch as catch can?
Yeah, that's kind of what I had. Well, thankfully, when I was writing this book, I was not in school yet, and work wasn't super hectic, and work wasn't it's never super demanding, but I wasn't like trying to pick up all these shifts, and I wasn't, diving into everything else. And so I was like, you know what, I can actually finish this because the rough draft took only like 3 to 4 weeks to finish.
Mhm.
Wow.
Yeah, whereas
That's
my other rough,
crazy.
I
That is
know,
so
like
fast. Wow.
the one I just recommended, The Little Bit of Blue, I watched one of her videos and she took 10 years to write that. And so
Uh-huh.
when I'm hearing these
That's
other
more my
stories of
speed.
exactly, yeah. When I hear all the other people and they're like, "Oh, I've worked on it for years and I've got this," even when I told my therapist, I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm working on the book." She was like, "Oh, so you've been working on it for a while?" And I'm like, "No." I was like, "It's been a month." And so,
Yeah, but when
there's
you
that
have it, when it's in your
yeah,
head, like, that's all you wanna do is be in that world.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
for sure, for
But I
sure.
don't have the, like, special time and place, it's kinda just wherever I can do it, and having there be downtime, at work helps a lot, especially when we
Mhm.
have, like, long distance transfers. I was working on my current work in progress the other day on, like, we had, like, 8 hours of downtime, and so I was just like,
Wow.
"Hell yeah, like, let me get my
Yeah.
schoolwork done, and then let me do, like, some writing and, like, do some more, like, stuff like that." And then I love to give characters the background that I don't show in the book because it can still help inform the decisions that they're making. Even though we can get like a little bit of glimpses here and there in the story, but it's like, oh, like, what were they like in school? And like, have they broken a bone? What is their favorite color? Like stuff like that. I love to
Mm.
just get in there and like think about it. Like in my current work in progress, I needed inspiration, so I was like, "How did these people's like parents meet?" Like, something like that. Because it's also part of the plot because the in the work in progress that I have, the mother is dead, and her grief and her memory kind of like haunts the whole story. It's like the overarching
Mm.
thing that's there. And so I was kind of thinking like, how did her and the dad meet, and like, what's their story, and like, how are they go from like kind of knowing each other to being like madly in love, and having their children. And so it's kind of wherever I can get it in, that's kind of how it has to be, especially since I have so much else going on.
Yeah.
So you wrote a first draft in basically a month, and then what does your revision process look like
Yeah, so this was actually the first time I ever had to do a real revision process, and it irritated the hell out of me.
then? Well, yes.
'Cause, 'cause I went through it because I would always go through, like, the chapters because when I was writing the one that I wrote in high school, I was publishing that onto Wattpad, so I had to do the editing and the grammar and stuff like that on my own. So I would
Mhm.
always kinda do that, and then I remember reading something where, like, the author of, like, Divergent was like, "Don't do that. Stop editing your work as you're writing it, like, you're just getting in your way." And so I had to do a lot of not that with this because I realized, like, I actually am getting in my own way, especially as I'm writing the story as it's going through. And then finally, when it was over, I was like, "Oh, thank God." But then going through it myself and then seeing, yes, I got the grammar, like, I can use, like, freaking Grammarly or whatever for that, but then I was like, I have to know, like, is it cohesive? Like, does it
Mhm.
flow well? Like, are we having the good things that we need in an actual book to like make it feel like a book? And then I actually, thankfully, I know an editor, and she's a
Well, that's
self-published author
handy.
herself. Yeah,
Yeah.
she's a self-published author herself on KDP, and I asked her like, "Hey, can I get a quote? You know, this book is super short. You know, this is what it's about. Take your time, please, because like everything that I'm so excited to get this book out that I'm like almost like overdoing it, and I'm like, I need this stuff away for a second. So please just have this. Do what you need with it, and then we'll get back to it." And so thankfully she gave me an awesome quote, and then she had her own stuff going on. So she was like, "I'm so like she had her own like little stuff that she had to deal with." And I was like, "No problem," because I got a bunch of other shit that I gotta worry about too. So thankfully that worked out. But in regards to like revisioning it afterwards as well, typesetting it and having to use like different tools, that was a pain in the ass. Because even after I had like I was like, "Okay, cool, it's submitted to Ingram, it's submitted to Kindle." I got my test copies and I went through to like go and annotate and I was like, "Shit." Like there's so many, like, little things that, because when I gave it to her, I actually went back and I changed some stuff that she had already gone through, so then I was like, "Okay, now I have to actually go back and do that on my own," and I missed it, and so I had, because there was a plot hole, actually, or not a plot hole, but, like, a continuity error that I fixed in the like, for the final draft that I did not catch, so I had to go
Mm.
back and edit it again, and then finally, like, it's good now, but yeah, it's really tedious work after the fun part.
Getting the book ready, yeah.
Yeah.
Did you do your own typesetting?
I used Veezy, yeah, so they're good at typesetting, and I love the format and how it's done. I wish they had the acknowledgments in the back instead of the front, and I wish Reedsy didn't, like, 'cause I was going through it even before I had it like a physical copy, and in the typeset, like, PDFs that I would get or the EPUB files, there would be random spaces in between words, which you might have noticed,
Uh,
Meagan. Like, more
yeah, a
spacing
couple of
between
times.
words.
A
Yeah, and I
couple
was
of
like,
times, yeah,
"God damn it." Like, I wish there
yeah,
was a way that it wouldn't do that.
yeah,
But I didn't think it
yeah.
took away too much, but yeah.
You're seeing it more than we did, though, because it's your baby, so you're a
Yeah.
lot more attuned to it.
Exactly.
I'm really interested in your experience, like like you say, the really unfun part of the book, because I have just now also dipped my toe into the indie pub waters,
Yeah.
and so I'm learning InDesign and, to actually, put the book together, format the book, and oh my god, there's so much to it. There's so much to it.
Yeah.
And, yeah, so I feel your pain, I really do. I wanna ask too about your cover, because your cover is a banger.
Yeah, it's great.
Thank you.
It
Really
Thank
is
you.
good.
that is a gorgeous cover,
Yeah.
and, yeah, so I just wanna ask, like, did you hire that out?
Had to hire that out.
Yeah, yeah,
I don't have the talent to do that myself or the
yeah,
patience to learn how to do that. I did getcovers.com. And
okay,
they're very against, like, using AI, which has really drew me towards them because the
perfect.
biggest thing that I struggled with was, I when I was reaching out to, like, 'cause first I was, like, reaching out to, 'cause they're what they call self-publishing agencies, which are usually just scammers.
Mhm,
Mhm.
And so I was dealing with one of those scammers, and I was ready to dive in. I was like, "I'm take my money," you know what I'm saying? Like, "Make this come true." But then I did my little research at first, and then I was like, "Oh, like, they're nothing but AI." Like, the only person who's real is, like, the agent who reaches out to you and gives you, like, checks
Mm.
of
yeah,
your shit.
yeah,
Their editing, boom, AI. Their cover design, boom, AI. Formatting, AI, like, all of it. And I was like, "That sucks." Like, I don't want that. And so I was looking for alternatives for, like, other things for, cover design and all that, and, like, someone mentioned Get Covers, and I was like, "God." And the experience with Get Covers was, like, really cool because they have such good deals, and they're always giving, like, discounts and all that, and it's, like, unlimited revisions, like, when they gave me the initial one, I was like, "It's not horrible, but we can do without some of this, and we can change this," and I felt kinda bad because I was like, "I'm not trying to be super, like," but then
uh-huh,
I was like, "I deserve to be, I think." I was like, I want this to be, like, a good thing, and so, finally, once it like, down to the detail of, like, Red's jacket having the slit in the middle of it, like, they were
Mhm.
on it. They were like, "How do you want this? Like, where do you like" down to the last nitty-gritty detail, they really were very responsive, and they were accepting of criticism, and even when I had to, like, totally change the dimensions of the cover, they were like, "Yeah, we'll do that for you." They're like, "Usually,
yeah.
it's this amount to do that, but we'll give you half off." And I was like, "Damn,
That's
okay," like
really nice. That's
yeah,
really nice. Well, they definitely put together a really good cover for you. I love the
yeah.
colors. The colors just pop.
It looks
It's,
Yes,
wonderful.
I
yeah,
really
it's a great
wanted
cover.
it's supposed to be queer, it's supposed to be the colors of the bisexual pride flag, blue, purple, pink. I was like, "I want that on there." And so I remember the initial pitch, I was like, "The blue, purple, pink," because that's the bisexual pride flag, but, like, I think I mentioned pride flag and pride colors separately, and so they actually put, like, the gay pride flag or, like, the general one in the background somewhere, and I was like, "It's cute, but it doesn't actually fit. Let me get let's take that off of there." But yeah,
Yeah.
so
That's great.
This has been your advertisement for
there
getcovers.com.
you go.
Right,
Maybe they will
I was
sponsor
just
us.
thinking, how come yeah, we needed to set up a sponsorship deal with them before we had you on.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, so no, no, it's a fantastic cover.
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah, really eye-catching, and so we've been talking a little bit about, like, your craft and publishing. I am going to be talk about the uncomfortable smut stuff now.
Yes.
And this is me because I am dealing with this right now. I actually tomorrow am going to be writing some smut.
Gotcha.
And now when my smut is, when things start getting a little bit hot and heavy, I just draw the veil
There you
across
go.
because I'm like,
Yeah, yeah.
I can't deal with this. So I've been having a lot of problems with like, oh, there are too many arms and there's too many legs and like I don't know where anything is supposed to go and I'm like, ah. So and also I want to die while I'm writing it. Like I'm just so embarrassed. Like, oh my
Yeah.
God. Oh my God. And you did such a great job. The scenes were really hot, really, really hot. And they were it did not matter, like, what the gender was of the person that he was fooling around with. They were
Yeah.
so, like, how do you
I appreciate
approach
that.
doing it? Like, do you
Yeah.
how do you start?
Yeah, so, like I said earlier, like, it was super uncomfortable, like, to do that, and I heavily debated, like, totally taking it out, and, like, obviously, we're gonna know that he's hooking up, but it's gonna be kinda like the makeout session, and then finally, when they're getting ready to, like, put things in, they're gonna, draw the curtains or, just keep it super, like, "We fucked," and then here's what happened afterwards. But then I was like, I wanted to challenge myself in that sense, so I did it, and initially it was bad. Like, it was not very well paced, there was no, like, build up, there was no chemistry, and so I was like, "How the fuck can I, like, get myself through this?" Because I was like, "I'm uncomfortable writing this, like, how can I make myself more comfortable?" And so I tried to make it funny, and so looking back, there's funny moments almost every time before they hook up, like, Welcome and, like, his dick slaps him in the face, and they laugh about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
He makes a joke to Teresa about, like, because she said, like, I think she said something about, like, loosening up with alcohol, and then he kinda, like, mocks her. It was his way to kind of just break the ice. There's always, like, ice-breaking moments just before, so that for me was like, "Okay, I can laugh at this," and I still laugh at the shit that I wrote because I think it's so hilarious. And I'm like, it's a good way to break the ice, and it's a good way to, like, show that, like, they're people, and of course, they have their own anxieties, and they have their own, like they might be in their own head about whatever, but it's like they're there to have fun, they're there to enjoy each other's company, and that's it.
Yeah.
Like,
It
there's
felt
no
real.
need to be yeah, there's no
It
need
felt
to be
real.
super, like, in your head about it,
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Yeah,
I appreciated it and the humor absolutely comes through, and that feels real. Like, in
yeah.
reality, things are, weird noises happen, weird things happen, and it's just like, "Okay." Just pivot,
Yeah,
but it's like
Well,
but
and I wonder too, as writers, I mean, because you're right, like, in the real world, like, funny things happen and,
yeah,
weird noises happen and things like that. And I think sometimes we as writers like feel like we have to set it up like perfectly. It's like, we're the director and this is this is our masterpiece or something and really yeah, so I think you've got a great, handle on that, which is yeah, make it funny, make it real.
yeah,
yeah, so it's just kinda like, tomorrow when I sit down, just kinda, like, make it real,
yeah.
relax, don't be too much in my own head. Okay, we whenever we do interviews, we try and get a little advice from the author that we're interviewing about, like, how do you
Yeah.
approach writing? This is and we try it. We try their little bit of advice. I think this is my thing is I'm just gonna try and relax and not be in my own head about it too much. 'Cause I go we're already like, "I don't wanna do this, but I kinda have to."
Yeah.
So, what do you love most about writing? And what do you hate most about writing?
I hate the block. I'll start there. I hate not having inspiration or trying to find it.
Mhm.
But when it comes, it's great. I think what I love about it is kind of just the escapism of it, just kind of being able to just turn out everything else that's going on and kind of just to have an outlet for that. Like I said, writing started off as that for me. And so it's still nice to be able to do just because of how much I have going on. But then it's also a good way to kind of just like ground myself and to realize like, oh, my life actually isn't that bad. you know, writing this was I was writing Cameron and I was like, damn, like it really could be worse.
Yeah.
Right, they're full of longing and you're full of like a what if and kind of like stuff like that. And very reminiscent, very nostalgic, kind of like stuff like that. And I told her I was like, it helps me remember that like I said, it could be worse. And I could absolutely be in a much worse position than I am right now. And I thankfully I'm like really like set and content with where I am. Um
So, did you always wanna go indie? Like, do you wanna join us people in the querying trenches? Or are you
Mhm.
I wouldn't recommend it, but,
Don't
like,
do it, don't
yeah.
do it.
don't do it, don't do
So
it.
I did query some agents for this as I was writing it, and even throughout the even throughout the like finalizing processes, never got a yes, which was fine. I didn't expect to get one, but I remember when I was younger, the way that I was introduced to publishing, I met, and I mentioned him in the acknowledgement at the very end. Tommy Mouton is a published author. He self publishes himself, and he was kind of telling me like, yeah, self publishing is a little bit different. You have to do all the marketing on your own, etc. So I think that might have been kind of like a deterrent at the time just because I was so young and I didn't have money. Like, he was always like, "Just keep doing it, like, just keep writing," and then finally when I was like, "You know what? I can do this," and it made more sense for my timeline just because, like, if I'm gonna sit there possibly for years querying agents and, getting them to final yes and all that, like, I wouldn't have time for that because, I have a year I'm potentially getting interviews for medical school, so it's like, I don't have the time to be sitting here for all these agents to get back to me. Or even if I get an agent, cool, but then it's like, do people wanna edit this? Do people wanna actually publish this, etcetera? I was like, I can do it on my own. It kinda just made sense.
Kirk is semi lured over to the light side of Self-Hub, and I am getting there
Yeah,
myself.
what you find out when you finally land an agent is that that is just the next step of waiting, right?
Mhm.
Because, then your book has to go on sub. Assuming it doesn't, your agent doesn't say, "Well, we're gonna do, like a round, some rounds of editing," right? And that might take time. But then, then you have to go on sub, and then you're waiting on publishers, on editors to come back to you. And so it is this never-ending series of just waiting. So, yeah, and so the book that I'm, gonna be self-publishing actually did go out on sub. It did not land with any editors, and so, so that's what I'm gonna do with this book.
Yeah.
So, we are totally, totally taking lots of advice and taking notes from you right now, and we will
Mhm, mhm, yeah, yeah.
I
be
appreciate
saving this
that.
transcript.
I would like to do an hour of with you just talking about the whole process, like, the mechanics behind it all,
Yeah,
but I'll
I've
spare
got his
you.
number now, Kirk.
Oh, excellent, excellent. I'll shoot you a text.
there you go. Feel free, I don't mind it.
Okay.
So, what surprised you most going down this path of self-publication, and what would you tell other aspiring authors who are thinking about it? People like Kirk, potentially people like me? Like, what have you found most interesting as you've kind of done this?
I would say that the thing that surprised me the most was, like, how many scammers there are. Like, I knew they're out there, but then it's like when you actually start doing, like you actually start looking for potentially an agency that says they're self-publishing, like, a bunch start reaching out. And then I remember somebody was like, "That's a red flag because they don't reach out to you, you have to reach out to them." Um, and just the unbelievable amount of money, like, these people expect, and it's like, I don't even know, and it's like, they're probably not even gonna do all the things they say, and, a lot of that's, like, legal, and it's hard to find the legal fight if they do something wrong. So I think just that, just like how many like spines was a big one.
Mhm.
That's the totally AI one, and then surprisingly Ex
Wow.
Libris because I heard good things about Ex Libris, but then other like indie publishers were like, no, they're essentially just like a printing press. Which
Mm.
because I remember
Interesting.
I asked my questions to Ex Libris. I asked like, how do they handle author copies?
Mhm.
and then who manages the ISBNs, and they failed
Those
on
are
that
great
front.
questions.
They
Yeah.
failed on that front because the author copies, they give you like 10. And I was like, huh? Whereas, Ingram and KDP, you can get as many as you want. You go through whoever your distributor, your publisher is, you order them yourself and then you get them. It's not like a set amount. And then ISBN management too, like it's all you when you're independent because you do it through like Balkers or whatever. But then Ex Libris says like, no, we have control over that. And I was like,
Oh, yeah.
no. Like
That's
I don't
not
like
only a
that.
red flag, that's a deal
Yeah.
breaker. Yeah. Yeah, for
Exactly,
sure.
yeah. So,
What did it
this
feel like, though, when you finally held that book in your hands?
I almost cried. I filmed myself, so I didn't I didn't wanna cry on camera because I think that's, like, kinda corny, but I was like, "Damn, like, I did it," you know? This is real. I think even just being able to typeset it on Readsy before I actually submitted it for approval, being able to see it, like, in a book format, like, was crazy. 'Cause I was like, that's so cool. Cause I have, the unpublished manuscripts and the Google Docs and everything, but it's Google Docs, you know? Doesn't actually
Mhm.
look very real, but, to see my name and to see the title and to see how it's formatted and the page numbers and, like, how it's flowing was totally, like, I did it. And then just to hold it and be able to, like, show people, like, I did this. I think it's, like, one of my most viewed and liked reels because I put it on my Instagram, and everybody's like craving about it. And I think you can even tell like that I'm trying not to cry on the video because I like pause for like 20 seconds. But yeah,
Oh, you
it
know we're
was
gonna post this in our show notes, a link to that reel. But, you mentioned you had some other works. What are you
yeah.
doing next? What are you writing next? What are you finishing next?
Yeah, so my current work in progress is called The B-Side of Albuquerque, A Bisexual's Guide to House Sitting. And so it's about a wedding singer who has always kind of felt like the black sheep in his family. And he is attending a wedding for his cousin, and she's getting married to her longtime partner, and he's best friends with her partner, so they've known each other for practically their whole lives. And so he's at their wedding, and then his aunt asked him to house sit because she has a property just out of Albuquerque in a little town called Bernalillo, and she has her own little thing after the wedding. Once the wedding's over, she's gonna go and have her little mini vacation out to wherever she's going. And so she asked him, "Hey, can you house sit for me?" And he agreed. He didn't know that she meant to ask all of his brothers, so she asked them all individually and they all said yes. And his brothers, right? His brothers love him, and but he feels like he's had it. Like he's like, you know what? Like they always remind me of like what a whore I am or whatever it is, and they've always kind of like used his sexuality and like how he's like very showy. And their mother was the singer, and their mother was the one who celebrated music with them. It's how they bonded growing up. But as they got older, the younger brothers kind of drifted away from that, and he, feeling the brunt of all of it, like had to like keep that going, and that's part of why he's in the career that he's in now. And so he's always just felt isolated and ostracized, and so finally he's like dreading seeing them at the wedding, and then they finally see each other, and then Bombshell, his long lost love from years ago that he thought she was the one, and he was, like, really in love with her and all this, boom, she's there, she's catering the wedding. And so it's kind of just that introduction and then how his brothers handle the situation and the story of, like, their grief with their mom and all this, like, tension building up. Because it's not just them, their father married very soon after the mother died, and they had a child. And the youngest child, their younger sister, is being thrust onto them by the stepmom and the father by saying, "Hey, she's getting acclimated to being out in the real world. She's starting college soon. Like, we need you guys to just have a week with her, please." The youngest brother say yes. The oldest brother never knew it was happening.
Oh
And
my
so he's like,
gosh.
and
That's a
he doesn't
great
wanna
setup.
be and so he doesn't wanna be the asshole to be like, "No, she can't fucking come." He's like, "Yes, of course, of course she can be there," like, and so it's kind of just how they function as a unit, how they function individually, and then the overarching, like, grief of the mom being there because the aunt who asked is that mom's aunt, so it's their great aunt. And so this is the house that the aunt has had for decades, and this is the house that they went to when they were younger, just before the mother died, and so it's haunted by her memory, and
Mm.
so it's kind of just all the tension build up and then the resolution of it, and, I don't wanna give too much away.
No, 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 it's fine.
Yeah, but it's dealing with that, it's dealing with the flashbacks of, like, the mom and the lost love, and now that she's back, and then their reconciliation, and then how things potentially go wrong with everything else, and it's just yeah, there's a lot of moving pieces right now. Um, but
And so
I'm
you should be done with that in about 3 weeks, is that right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
pretty soon.
wish. I started that one mid-December, and I'm about a third of the way through. So
Okay.
this one has a more realistic timeline to it.
So and
It's
Yeah.
also
good to know that you're actually human then,
yeah,
okay.
oh,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
exactly,
yeah, yeah.
and not
Um,
AI.
yeah, not
And not
AI, not AI, yes. Yes, very good to know. And of course, when are you graduating?
I finish my program next spring, and then I will be there's no formal graduation because it's like, okay, you're in the program, but it's like when you wanna apply to med schools, that's when you're officially done. So I'll be applying to med schools next spring. So I'll be done with courses around the same time.
Very
So that's when I'll be
exciting.
finished. Yeah.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, let's do some random stuff. Like, what do you like to do when you're out writing, reading, studying, all that stuff,
Yeah,
working?
I go to the gym, I walk the dog, I take my parents out so that they can get out of the house. We go watch movies, go out to eat. I just took a little vacation with one of my best friends to San Francisco. I try to get out when I can. I like to go for hikes. I like to go to the beach. I lived in San Francisco, or not San Francisco, Santa Cruz for a summer when I was like 9 or 10. So I have a sweet spot for that. So I love going to Santa Cruz, going to the beach, being able to get out. Yeah, that's
Tell us about your
pretty
dog.
much it.
We wanna know
Um,
about the dog. We wanna know about Bailey.
yeah, her name is Bailey, and I put her in the book because I wanted to immortalize her. Unfortunately, she won't live forever, and so that was kind of my way to do that. She's 10. We actually got her around the same time that we moved here, so she's kind of just been like our Merced doggy. She's kind of helped with the downsides, and like the more like when my mental health was not the greatest, my dog helped a lot. And just like kind of keeping her active and then just like loving her and being there with her just helps even when, like, I'm not feeling horrible and I just, like, had a long day at work, she helps a lot with all that.
Dogs are great for that.
Yeah,
Yeah. So music when you're writing, right? You're
absolutely,
yeah,
yes.
me too. So it is I can't have lyrics, because I start like, "Oh, yeah, I really like this song." But
Interesting.
what about you? Lyrics are good?
Yeah, my music has lyrics. That's why I made the playlist for 6.5 Days in the City. It helped me also just kinda stick in the same vibe and, like, stay in that headspace of, like, kind of like what ifs and longing and, love and all that. Like, some of the songs are Iris by the Go-Go Dolls,
Mhm.
Pillow Talk by Zayn, Fast Car, stuff like
Yeah,
that. Father to
yeah.
a Son by Green Day, stuff like that.
Mhm, mhm. Yep.
And so it's very that, but then it's also kind of just more lighthearted stuff like Naked in Manhattan by Chapel Roan, Welcome to New York or Win in New York by Van Sire, like stuff like that. Like little things that are like, oh, okay, there's that little part of it. Because it's like it can't be all depressing, there's some lighthearted moments, and we
Yeah,
want to like
there's
keep it
plenty of
lighthearted.
them.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you have any weird writing rituals or superstitions, or do you, like, just like, "Nope, I'm just a writer. I just do my thing."
Yeah, I kinda just do my thing. I try to stay caffeinated because after a long writing session,
Excellent.
I'm, like, exhausted, I'm like, "Damn." And especially, like, if I'm writing in the middle of, like, a work shift, I'm like, "I can't." I have to be at least pretend like I'm happy to be here, you know?
Yeah.
But I love my job, you know? There's just days where it's like, ugh.
Yeah, I know. Why do they God, why do we have to work? I mean, can we just all just hurry up and win the lottery so we can just, have our little artist collective and just, like, write all the
Yeah.
time? Where is the weirdest place you've ever written?
I don't know if it's that weird, like, cause I write in the ambulance all the time. Like, I'll write in the passenger seat, or I'll write, like, what we
Mhm.
call the captain's chair, so it's the seat that's right behind the patient. That's our captain's chair, I've written there. I've written on airplanes, I've written on the subway and on the beach, a bunch of different places. I don't know that that would be super weird, though.
Well, I'd say an ambulance sounds weird to somebody like me.
Probably. Maybe, yeah, I don't think it's weird because it's, like, every day. I'm like,
Yeah.
it's just an ambulance." Yeah.
Um, so, where can listeners find you online and find out more about your work and stay updated on what you're doing? Because 'Cause we're gonna put
Yeah.
all the links in the show notes, so tell us.
So most easily is the Amazon. I'm on Amazon. I got paperback, hardcover, ebook, and I'm going to start working on the audio soon, which is going to be very interesting because I'm probably going to have to take a lot of breaks so that I don't laugh as I'm reading the book. Because I do that for YouTube, but it's like it's not very studio, and there's things in the background. Like sometimes I'll listen to the book myself, and then I'll hear like my dad, putting his coffee down on the thing, or the buttons when he's playing his game, like Bailey's paws in the background. But I'm getting the audiobook soon. It's on Kindle Unlimited, so if people subscribe, they'll get it for free. You can buy it off of my TikTok shop. I sign the books, I leave little notes, hardcover and paperback, and then off of my personal bookstore. That's the way that I get the money the fastest. Once it's been processed, the money comes in like the same day. Whereas Amazon, like even though it's convenient, like once it's like they do it every month, they process it, but processing takes like 2 months.
And you have Instagram, you have,
Yes, I have Instagram and Facebook. It's Isaac Grijalva Books. That's like the professional one, and like the
mhm,
I'm an author one, and then there's my personal, which I have the Instagram, which is public. I don't care who follows me. That's Isaac Taylor's version 99 because I'm a big Taylor Swift fan. That's the same as the TikTok, and then my YouTube channel is Reading with Isaac 123, and then I have a website which is just isaacgrijalvabooks.com, and then I have the links to all my socials there.
great.
Mhm.
Is there anything else you wanna say? Because 'cause we've loved having you on to talk about this. It's been
Yeah,
really fun.
I've loved being
This
this is
has
probably
been
my
great.
favorite one. Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you for having me on. I know
Of
I've said that like
course!
3 times already. I
No.
hope people enjoy the book. I hope people kind of just take away at least something. Um, the biggest thing I hope that people get is that they're not alone, and that they have meaning, and they have value, and that they are important to people. But yeah.
No, it really came through. I really enjoyed reading your book.
Yeah. Thank you.
So, thank you everyone for listening to, Bad Lit Friends again, and you can find us on all the social medias. We are Bad Lit Friends everywhere. Blue Sky. We are on YouTube, which for whatever reason, every time I enable it and make it public, it unpublics it for me. Thank you very much, YouTube. We are also on Instagram occasionally. And Spotify again reminded me to remind you to subscribe because that brings more listeners to us when you subscribe, and continue to leave us comments. So we got a comment on YouTube. I actually remembered to look for comments. So Dak, who said he loved the show and really hopes that we're getting so published, we also really hope that we're getting so published. We shall see.
Yes. Thank you, Dak.
Thank you very much for that. Next week, I have twisted Kirk's arm, and we are going to be talking about book talk. Um, yeah.
Yay.
So I have some thoughts about book talk.
Yes, we all have thoughts.
Yes, yes. So
Yeah.
until then, go check out Isaac's work.
Yes, thank
Thank
you,
you so
Isaac,
much.
so much for joining us. We
Yes,
really
thank
Yeah.
you so
appreciate it.
much.
It's been so much fun. Thank you.
It was just a tremendous amount of fun.
Yes. So until then, we will see you next time.
Bye.